Welcome to Malindi Vasco Da Gama Pillar. My name is Jeffrey Mwangi.
Thank you.
Da Gama.
Hey, welcome. Sorry, asante.
So the reason why actually the Portuguese settled along the east coast of Africa, they were looking for the sea route to India. Why India?
Sea route to India.
Yes, why India in particular? Because India was the only country which was producing spices by then. So the Portuguese settled along the east coast of Africa on 15th century, looking for the minerals and also spices in India. That is what brought them here. So before they came, there were some settlers who actually settled earlier than them, the Arabs. So the Arabs settled here on 11th and 12th century. And when they settled, for them, they were taking slaves from here. I'm now talking about the east coast of Africa. They were taking ivory from here. They were taking rhino horn from here to Far East, India, China, and some other countries of Africa. Yeah? And when they were coming back, they would come back with spices. They come back with minerals. They come back with textile. They come back with perfume. It was barter trade. There was no money by then. So now I'm not talking about the Arabs. And they settled along the east coast of Africa from Mozambique up to Somalia. To go back to the Portuguese, King Manuel was actually the ruler of the Portugal by that time. So he thought, why couldn't they look for somebody who could try to find out that country called India so that they could take over the trade which was being done by the Arab merchant. Now I'm talking about slaves and spices, which were being done by the Arabs. So he looked for a good and a qualified navigator and explorer and came out to be Vasco da Gama. So Vasco da Gama was a qualified explorer and a navigator who was given a job to go and find out a task, to go and find out a country called India, where it is, so that they could actually control the trade which was being done by the Arab merchant. So he was given 170 men, and these 170 men were explorers like him, they were navigators, and some were soldiers. And he was given also 4 ships. The 4 ships were equipped with weapons because they knew very well where they were heading. They were going to fight battles with the Arabs who were controlling the Indian Ocean. So in 1497, that's when Vasco da Gama started his journey from Lisbon, which is the capital city of Portugal, with his crew of 170 men, and tried to find this country called India. So it could be easier for Vasco da Gama to go to Atlantic Ocean with his 4 ships, go to Mediterranean, go to Red Sea, Arabian Sea, Indian Ocean. That was the easiest way to reach India. But he couldn't. Why? Because of Suez Canal. Suez Canal was not actually built. Suez Canal was built on 19th century, and these guys were here on 15th century. So another thing is that the Mediterranean was so much disputed. The Ottoman Empire controlled most of the part of Mediterranean. So they never wanted any confrontation with those people along the Mediterranean. So they were forced to go around the whole of Africa. So they went down to South Africa, and they called that one Cape Agulhas. Cape Agulhas means Cape of Stone. Agulhas, yes, that's a Portuguese name. So it was called that way because the first Vasco da Gama was not the first explorer or navigator to try to find out a country called India. There were some who tried before him, but they failed. People like Diego Cao, they reached Central Africa, Congo there. He died of tropical diseases and the mission was terminated. And then came another guy called Bartolomeo Diaz. He tried all the way down to South Africa and he met this huge storm at Cape of Storm. So when Vasco da Gama passed that place with the storm, with that huge storm, it was changed to the name of actually Cape of Good Hope. So the first country where they wanted to settle was Mozambique. Remember, the Arabs had dominated from Mozambique up to Somalia. So when they reached Mozambique, they were not welcomed by the Arabs who were there. So they decided to go to Mombasa. So when they went to Mombasa, again, the Oman Arab who were there, they were very hostile to the Portuguese. So they proceeded to Malindi. So when they came to Malindi, they were welcomed. Why were they welcomed by the Arabs in Malindi and not in Mombasa? Because the Arabs in Malindi and the Arabs in Mombasa, they were not in good terms. So they used to fight every time because of the trade of spices and slaves. So they welcomed the Portuguese knowing that they are going to help them to fight their enemies in case there are going to be a war between the Arabs in Malindi and the Arabs in Mombasa. So they made a treaty, and the time when they reached here was actually 1498. So when they got here, they were given one local navigator after the treaty. And the navigator took them actually to India. You remember they didn't know where India was, but these Arabs, they were very familiar with the countries at Far East because they were used to going there.
Sorry.
Yeah,
He still had these 3 ships.
4 ships.
4 ships.
Yes.
And the personnel.
And the personnel. And they were all equipped with weapons, yeah? So they reached India, and the first country where they actually the first city where they landed was actually Calcutta. Calcutta was actually called the city of spices. So they got there, found the spices which they wanted, got the spices they wanted, and passed in Malindi, took fresh food, fresh water back to Portugal. And they gave King Manuel the spices. Remember, King Manuel was the one who funded the whole expedition. So when he was given the spices, he sold the spices, and he got a huge profit of 60 times profit compared to the cost of the whole expedition. So the trip was worth it. As the first European to discover the sea route to India. So the whole expedition took about 1 month, 1 year, 4 months, so that was 16 months. So Vasco da Gama finished his work. He was not a trader, he was an explorer and a navigator. So years passed by, and then came another king called King John III. This King John III appointed Vasco da Gama again as a viceroy. Viceroy is like a governor to represent Portugal in India, but this time in a different town called Cochin. They started in Calcutta, but there were so many revolts there, the Indian with the Indians, so they went to Goa. At Goa, there were the same problems. All those towns are in India, so the last town actually they stayed was actually Cochin. So Vasco da Gama was sent in Cochin. So by bad luck, he died there of tropical diseases, Vasco da Gama, and he died when he was 64 years. He was buried there in a church in Cochin for the time being. And then later, his remains were taken to Portugal and buried there officially. So his remains are not here, the way people think. They are not in India, but they are in Portugal, where he's actually buried again outside the church. So that was the end of Vasco da Gama, but it was not the end of the Portuguese. Remember, he made some treaty with the Arabs here. And the Sultan by that time was called Sheikh Bauri. And he allowed the Portuguese to build their headquarters here in Malindi. And they stayed actually over a century, doing the same trade which was being done by the Arab merchants. So they were taking slaves from here, ivory from here, take them to India, soak them with spices, and then take the spices to Portugal. And the Portuguese could sell spices to other European countries, and that made Portuguese empire to be very, very strong economically. But their big aim, they have always wanted to conquer Mombasa. Why Mombasa and not staying here? Because Mombasa was like a gateway to India. all the trade from the mainland ended up in Mombasa, and they started in Mombasa. So it was very vital to them. And also the sea was actually deeper compared to Malindi. So they organized themselves and went and conquered Mombasa, and they built Fort Jesus. So Fort Jesus was actually built by the Portuguese who were here. They were here the whole of 15th century. And they built Fort Jesus on the end of 16th century. And they moved their headquarters from here in Malindi, and they took it to Mombasa, and they never came back to Malindi again. So we go back now to that pillar that you are going to see there. The first pillar was built in a place called Shela. Shela is our old town now, but because of the conflict between the Muslim and the Christian, the first pillar was destroyed because of the cross. When the Portuguese, or when the group of the Vasco Da Gama that built the first pillar, when they built it, they put a cross there, and the Arabs were annoyed, so they destroyed the first one. So another group looked for another location where they could actually build the second pillar, and they relocated the second pillar where you're going to see it there. So that was built on 16th century. Reason of the pillar being built: one was a landmark. So when they were on the sea, they could actually see it. It was used for navigation, like a lighthouse. The second one was direction. When you go near that pillar, you'll see actually the cross on top of it. There's a coat of arms on top of it. So that one is showing the direction of India. The third one was a memory. So they really wanted to know that people to know they conquered Malindi and they ruled Malindi. Last.
Good job, eh?